Welcome to Cryptic Accounts, a podcast by paranoid people for paranoid people. And this week on the show, we've got the conspiracy of conspiracies, the double-edged sword of global warming. Thank you so much for tuning in. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button, the like button, share, do all that good stuff. Write a review. We really appreciate it. I'm Patrick Ryan, joined by Dennis Cheney, as always. Hi, Dennis.
Hello, Patrick. It's nice to be here. And I see we're doing global warming. I always knew it was a conspiracy.
Oh, wait, it's way more interesting than that. Um, this was kind of a weird way I got to this. We'd kind of been talking about off air about how much everybody has enjoyed the murder of Karen Silkwood two-parter episode. Not for her murder, but for the content. Let me be clear about that.
Yes, we want to make that very clear. We're not celebrating her murder.
And I had kind of, noticed that I haven't done really any declassified government conspiracies lately. And we'd kind of been talking about stuff like the Karen Silkwood, like are more corporate conspiracies. So right. I kind of started going down that rabbit hole and was looking into different things and stumbled on some amazing research that was done by Karen M. Douglas and Robbie M. Sutton. It's from March 1st, 2015, but I found it on journals.sagepub. And normally I would bring a lot of sources together, as people kind of know, like we aggregate a bunch of stuff and then talk about it. This was so well researched. Like I don't think I could put something together better than this. Like it's just really well put together. And I think it's a topic that based on what I've seen of their other work, they really want it up. They're great people. A lot of stuff that they research is really well done. They're good people to look up. So we're going to do a lot involving that. But before I got to them, I stumbled on a little bit of something else from a man named Jeremy Lent, who's the author of Patterning Instinct, A Cultural History of Humanity's Search for Meaning. And he writes about a bunch of different stuff, another very interesting author. But he'd written an article, 5 Real Conspiracies You Need to Know About. And that's kind of what kicked off the direction we're going to go with all of this.
I've wanted to do the confirmed conspiracies for a while, so I think this will be interesting.
Yeah, I have a few actually that like I said, I was kind of bouncing around a little bit. So there's going to be more of this coming. It's been a weird couple weeks of research that started with we're going to do some mind control, memory alteration at some point as a teaser. But yeah, that's where I started, and then we talked about that, and then we ended up here. So with all that being said, Dennis, are you ready for the double-edged sword that is global warming?
I am ready, sir.
So for over 50 years, fossil fuel executives have known about the reality of human-induced climate change, yet they spent most of that time deliberately concealing their knowledge and obfuscating the public's discussion on the topic so they could rake in trillions of dollars in profit. In 1968, the Stanford Research Institute alerted the American Petroleum Institute, the National Trade Association that represents America's oil and natural gas industry, to the fact that CO2 emissions were accumulating in the atmosphere and could reach 400 parts per million by the year 2000. Their report warned that rising CO2 levels would result in melting ice caps, rising seas, and serious environmental damage worldwide. Exxon scientists studied the issue further and reported to management in 1977 that there was overwhelming consensus that fossil fuels were responsible for CO2 increases. In an internal Exxon memo in 1981, though, scientists raised the alarm that the company's 50-year plan, quote, will later produce effects which will indeed be catastrophic, at least for the substantial fraction of the Earth's population.
Now, if I'm an Exxon executive, I'm like, fraction. Let's see how big that fraction.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of, well, how long before we get to this? Because I'm going to die at some point, and I need all the money before then. Well, what happens afterwards, I don't care. So Exxon and other fossil fuel companies knew their actions would lead to climate breakdown. But instead of trying to solve that problem, they lied to the public to hide their misdeeds. Following the examples of the tobacco industry, which had already condemned millions to early death through cynical deception, they embarked on a concerted strategy to dupe the public by paying fake experts to publish papers, cherry picking selective data to support false conclusions, and sow their own wild conspiracy theories to deflect attention from their own very real crimes.
Well,
So, as a
oh,
result of this immoral plot, the world is now facing a dire climate emergency. If the fossil fuel companies had confronted the issue honestly from the outset, there could have been a managed transition to renewable energy over decades, causing little disruption and saving millions of lives through reduced pollution. Instead, it will now take an immediate global mobilization to avoid a 2 degrees Celsius rise in temperature over pre industrial levels. The world is currently on track for more than a 3 degrees Celsius rise in this century, with the high likelihood of stumbling into a tipping point cascade that quickly leads to 3 and 4 degree world one that would become rapidly unrecognizable. So it may end up speeding up.
right.
So, with the Amazon rainforest turning into searing desert, coastal cities inundated by flooding, super hurricanes tearing the windows out of skyscrapers, persistent massive droughts, and famine across the world, and hundreds of millions of people desperate now as climate change refugees.
Climate refugees.
I mean, that's going to become a thing at a certain point. I mean, we joke about it, but California really is going to fall off into the ocean at some point. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's pretty well agreed upon. Like, at some point, that's going to go.
I just hope the super volcano gets us first.
I mean, and then there's that. Yeah. We're just so
Yeah.
short sighted with history. Like, it can never happen to us.
I mean, eventually. Well, I don't want to say that because I don't believe that. But I mean, yeah, I do believe there's going to be. We're due for some cataclysms eventually. It's just history. Yeah.
Historically, yeah,
Yeah.
it's coming up on due. So while this was happening, the oil industry is putting billions of lives in jeopardy, and the four biggest companies, ExxonMobil, Royal Dutch Shell, Chevron, and BP, combined have made $2 trillion in profit since they began their campaign of lies in 1990.
So it
And
began
that
in
number's even bigger
1990.
now because this is from like a year ago or so.
Okay. I was going to ask you when this is from because that's always important with climate stuff.
This actually was from October of 2020, so not that long ago.
Oh yeah, this is basically this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So now to get into Karen M. Douglas and Robbie Sutton's thoughts and this paper that they wrote, Climate Change, Why the Conspiracy Theories Are Dangerous. So in 2006, hurricane expert Bill Gray, a very well respected professor of atmospheric science at Colorado State University, called global warming, quote, one of the greatest hoaxes ever perpetrated on the American people, and said that after a period of warming, the Earth would begin to cool again in 3 to 8 years. 8 years on, the Earth is still warming, and that's according to NASA in 2014. But if anything, the voices alleging conspiracy have become even louder. So when prominent experts such as Gray speak, people listen. As an expert on meteorology, he's a trusted source of information about the world's climate. Other well-known climate skeptics include U.S. Senator James Inhofe,
Yeah.
uh,
In a half.
who he actually wrote The Greatest Hoax, How the Global Warming Conspiracy Threatens Your Future in 2012, and chairs of the Senate's Environment and Public Works Committee, former Northern Irish environmental minister Sammy Wilson, former U.S. vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin, and former president of the Czech Republic Václav Klaus, all have been very vocal about how it's not a real thing. So when people are unsure of the facts and lack the necessary knowledge and skills to interpret data themselves, they understandably turn to trusted experts to guide their opinions and behaviors. However, when people listen to climate skeptics, they enter a minefield of mistrust, suspicion, and doubt. By no means do all skeptics advance conspiracy theories to discredit mainstream science and environmental policy. Nonetheless, theories abound that assert that climate scientists are faking their data to obtain more research funding, or global warming is an attempt to promote nuclear power, or it is a scam cooked up by the people who own shares in renewable energy companies, or it is a myth spread by environmentalists in the pursuit of a one world socialist government. These are all the conspiracy theories that have the power to influence what people think and do. And those are just a few of the ones that float around global
Oh
warming.
yeah, it gets way yeah. I mean, yeah, I've heard crazier stuff than that.
Oh, yeah.
I think the only one that's semi believable is that there's well, I don't know, some of them are believable, but I like the idea. I would love to learn more about how like the scientific community works.
Hmm.
I feel like if there was more reporting on it, then people wouldn't be so suspicious of stuff.
The thing is, though, the information is out there. Most people don't want to read it.
Yeah, but don't you think our media focuses so excessively on like politics and like entertainment and stuff that
Well, yeah.
people don't, they just say, here's what the scientists say, and then it's like you're gonna have people that are skeptical because you don't actually. I felt for a long time now that they don't report and they don't teach people enough how research universities work, how papers work, how like scientific commissions work. Like people don't know what those things are. So when they hear, oh, a bunch of people met in Copenhagen and they're telling you that you can't drive your car, you know what I mean? Like they don't understand like everything that goes into that,
Yeah.
and all they know is that 90% of what they read is gossip or politics, and so they see everything through that lens. So when you have a newspaper article that's like, or a mainstream news article, it's like, here's what scientists say, they all met here, like you're like, who are these people, what's going on? And they're going to see things through this, like through the lens that like 90% of our news is through. So like I kind of don't necessarily blame like everyday people for not knowing. You know what I mean? Like they're going to gravitate towards seeing things the way we see like political stuff, the way,
Well,
and especially
yeah.
since this has become so politicized.
Well, and that's kind of what I was saying at the beginning there is like people look to experts to understand these sorts of things.
Right, yeah. And they're
You're
going to
right.
look
Not,
through,
I
yeah.
think you really nailed it though. On yeah, not enough people really understand how a lot of those things work, and it's not. I think they think it's a lot more like willy nilly and just kind of throwing darts at a board than it actually is. Like,
Well, I think it's painted more because I've read some of these conspiracy theories. I love conspiracy theories, and I
yeah,
think
we
it's
definitely both
like,
do.
yeah, exactly. And
That's why we're here.
it's very much painted as, you know, when you read a story, let's say about a scientist that discovers something new, people tend to take it and run with it. They're like, "Oh, this is a guy," and they can understand that. They can be like, "Here's a guy in a lab, and he's like Edison, and he figured out something new." But then when you talk about this group of elite professors who meet overseas with a bunch of government officials, like you're ripe for people to have a conspiracy. You're just ripe for it.
Well, yeah, but
Like
those aren't the only scientists that are doing research and reporting on these things either, though. Like,
no, but that's the way, and I blame, not to make it too political, but I blame the entire spectrum of things for making this the issue it's become. Because if I am going to end up as a climate refugee or a volcano refugee or a California falling into the ocean refugee, I'm going to be mad that, like, I never feel like in my life there's been a serious discussion about this.
oh no,
I don't feel like I've ever witnessed a serious discussion about this. I feel like it's always been so political that like it's just we're I don't know. But yeah. But I'm not trying to contradict anything you're
no, no,
saying. I
no,
just
and that's well, we're gonna kind of get to why this is such a confusing
yeah.
issue for people. So,
Yeah, and I have thoughts on that too, but I'm saving them. So
yeah,
yeah.
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 No, but no, I'm getting to that. Because yeah, it's hard to tell what's correct when there is conspiracy theories on both sides of an argument.
Yeah, and also there's going to be different things on both sides of a scientific argument. I don't think people I don't think people, gosh, I'm not saying people are uninformed because God knows I'm uninformed about most things scientific, but like, I don't feel like it's reported on and talked about responsibly by people.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
agree with
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So conspiracy theories, as we kind of know and as we've kind of covered on this show, like there's a wide range from like really crazy ones that I'm not saying are wrong, but the more extreme ones, for example, like Barack Obama and other world leaders are reptilians in human disguise, to unproven, such as like the US government was at least complicit and at worst responsible for 9/11, and to the true, such as the Watergate affair or the Tuskegee syphilis scandal. Other well known conspiracy theories include the notion that Lee Harvey Oswald worked with CIA to assassinate President Kennedy, and that elements within the British establishment killed Diana, Princess of Wales, and that NASA faked the Apollo moon landing. In general, people find it difficult to believe that such significant events can be explained by mundane or ordinary details. That's according to research that was done by Lehman and Cinerilla in 2007. Climate change is perhaps a supreme example of this proportionality bias. It is a global scale event with enormous significance and is portrayed by scientists and governments as such a consequence of small everyday factors such as the transport we use. It is perhaps no surprise, then, that there are many conspiracy theories about climate change. Such theories typically postulate that global warming is not happening, and instead that scientific findings are being exaggerated or fabricated by people who have something to gain. Because they all have this thread in common. They are often referred to collectively as the Great Global Warming Conspiracy. However, the motives and perpetrators identified by the various theories are not always the same. And among the most popular theories are that scientists are making it up for political reasons. According to this theory, scientists are fabricating or tweaking their data to gain political power and to support politicians striving for power. For example,
I've heard a better version of that, but keep going.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, Well, for example, like Bill Gray has argued that global warming gives scientists and politicians a cause that will allow them to organize, propagandize, force conformity, and exercise political influence. In short, the theory argues that the case for global warming is a political stunt.
See, I love conspiracy theories. That's a big stunt. You can. There's a much better
Of
stunts
all
you
the
could do.
ways you could gain power, it just seems like a really long road to travel. Another is that global warming is a green scam. Another conspiracy theory that argues that because many people have invested in renewable energy companies, they stand to lose a lot of money if global warming is shown to be a myth. According to this theory, environmental groups thereby bribe climate scientists to doctor their data so that they're able to secure their financial investment in green energy.
I want to put a pin in this for 1 second.
Okay.
That last one depends. This is what I'm saying about it being political. Entirely on your own ability to decide which is science to believe, because the idea that someone invested in green energy is paying scientists to say what they want is the exact same thing we started out with about oil companies.
Yeah.
So literally, if you're saying both
Same song,
sides
different band.
is the same song, different band, you literally, to get to the heart of that, you would have to decide which one of these two people that are being paid are lying because they're paid. So you basically cancels its entire self out, and you just have to become a client scientist again. That's what infuriates me about this. Is it's like you're leaving people to their own devices, and
Well, and
you're
that's what made this topic so interesting to me. Because usually, in most examples of conspiracy theories, there's like the moon landing is fake, but we just have the one thing that the government says it's real, it happened, you saw it. And then you have a spider web of different theories about the ways they could have faked it.
yeah. And I like the idea.
There's literally crazy stuff on both sides of this argument. And so you're right,
Uh,
the average person, how are they going to know which expert to believe when experts are arguing with each other?
right. And I like the idea. I think you skipped over it, and we can go back to it. Maybe you're doing it in different order, but the idea that the scientists aren't doing it because the politicians are telling them to, they're doing it because they know that the politicians will give them research funding for doing for having certain conclusions, or that they'll be able to continue their research longer if their conclusions are in line with what gives them research funding. Not necessarily that they're doing it because they're part of the socialist cabal and they want to like control the world, but they know that my client that gives out these grants will sure fund my next study if my first study says that the thing they are concerned about is real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So global warming is an attempt to promote nuclear power is another one, although its life cycle is not entirely carbon free. Nuclear power production emits relatively small amounts of greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide, and therefore does not contribute significantly to global warming. One of the many claims made in the 2007 British documentary, The Great Global Warming Swindle, is that the threat of global warming is an attempt to promote nuclear power. Ultimately, companies in the nuclear power sector stand to profit if nations become more dependent on nuclear power. Indeed, any scheme that puts a price on carbon emissions is likely to benefit nuclear power.
Yeah. I don't buy that one.
Oh yeah, no,
Was that
we're
was
just
that
gonna
the
go over a bunch of these though.
Oh yeah, was that the British lord? Did you read it? There was a British lord who got really famous. He put out like a documentary right after Al Gore's documentary.
This might
I forgot his
this
name,
might
but
have been that then.
this might have been that. Yeah. I never knew that he thought it was a nuclear thing. Here's why I do not believe the nuclear thing. How many crazy, and I use crazy colloquially, like how many really into environmentalist people are out there being like, more nuclear power.
Yeah,
Like that just one that seems like the nuclear energy industry would have to be just playing like everybody. They'd have to be
yeah.
playing the oil people, they'd have to be playing the government, and
Well,
they're
and as we've learned in the Karen Silkwood episode, that I mean, who knows? They're not great people at all.
it's possible, but I don't know if they would
Mess
be.
around and get plutonium poisoned.
Yeah, I'm not gonna mess around with them, but they would have to be so. If this was a hoax drummed up by nuclear power, it would have to be so diabolical that they're single-handedly defeating a way bigger energy sector and the government, just everyone all at one
It's
time.
a
I
lot to take in.
Yeah,
You know, again, that's why I found this so interesting because there are so many theories just all over the place.
I know you're throwing 8 conspiracy theories at me. I want to comment on all of them. It's
That's
so
fine
hard.
when we're talking about each one of them, but
I know.
oh, yeah. So in the previous examples, the alleged conspirators are driven by either political power or money. This is much the same for many other conspiracy theories. For example, some argue that 9/11 attacks were all about oil, that Princess Diana was murdered because she posed a threat to the British political stability, which at some point I think we're going to do a Princess Diana episode. Just,
Yeah,
I don't know. It was very, a side note. Do you remember like watching that funeral and when that happened?
I vaguely remember the funeral, but I remember very strongly when she died.
Yeah, it was like a big deal.
Yeah, because I
And
remember
for whatever
my
reason, I think,
parents came and grabbed me.
yeah,
Yeah,
I remember watching it with my parents. Yeah, it was a big deal. And that's one that's always kind of fascinated with. I've been fascinated with, but I think we need to go back to it at some point.
I read one of my first books I read on these topics when I was in like middle school was a very gosh, I wish I had it. I wish I had the title and the author on the top of my head, but it was about the Mossad.
Hmm.
And it began, the first chapter was about the Mossad being, I think her driver might have been being harassed by the Mossad the night that she died.
Oh, really?
Like the week leading up to it, like he didn't get much sleep because he was involved in something else, and they were trying to get like close to him to get close to her, and
Huh.
yeah,
Weird. Interesting. Yeah, that's one we're gonna have to go back to at some point. So okay, so then there's also like the President Kennedy was assassinated because he was unpopular with powerful people in the government, CIA, or the mafia. Someone always has something to gain, financial or political or both, from these types of events. Similarly, all climate change conspiracy theories surmise that global warming is a scam manufactured by those who have something to gain from it. Although the perpetrators vary from theory to theory, as we're kind of finding. But this may be where similarities between climate change conspiracy theories and other conspiracy theories end. So far, social scientists have not conducted systematic research to examine exactly how belief in conspiracy theories about climate change is similar to or different from other conspiracy beliefs. While researchers await a new wave of studies focused on climate change conspiracy beliefs, comparing climate change conspiracy theories with other popular conspiracy theories reveals some crucial differences. One key difference is that people have multiple deep seated reasons to believe in climate change conspiracy theories. Most people prefer to believe that they are part of an enduring and moral social group that can be confident and strong in the face of conflict and threat. They also prefer to perceive themselves as moral individuals. Indeed, self enhancement, the motivation to feel good about oneself and maintain self esteem, is seen as universal. Although sometimes unrealistic, people are also motivated to believe they are headed towards a bright future and that they should be optimistic about their prospects. It is obviously more pleasant to hold these beliefs than to not hold them. More than that, these beliefs appear to be fundamental to people's ability to function effectively.
Yeah.
So climate change presents a powerful threat to these fundamental and cherished beliefs about morality of individuals and the legitimacy of societies. The key psychological appeal of climate change conspiracy theories, then, may be that they discredit the apparently overwhelming evidence that humans are contributing to the destruction of their own environment. Denial of climate change is likely to do a lot more for people's general sense of uh, equanimity than, say, believing that Princess Diana was murdered. Climate change conspiracies may therefore be politically significant type of motivated reasoning in which information that challenges valued beliefs is discounted while information that supports them is accepted uncritically. Of course, it is possible for people to doubt the evidence for anthropogenic climate change without subscribing to conspiracy theories. For example, a person may believe that the planet is warming due to natural cycles, but the two are clearly correlated. A
Right.
relate. Oh, go ahead.
Right. Yeah. They just said they're the social sciences, and I would love to see more social science stuff on who denies, who believes. I find that almost more fascinating than the actual climate science. Um, I think it's interesting that I would like to know where the line is for these authors. Okay, let's say you have let's say you and I both doubt climate change, quote unquote.
Okay.
Let's say that you doubt it because you believe the earth is warming due to the sun and cycles that the sun has.
Okay.
And let's say I doubt it because I read an article from someone who is paid by ExxonMobil, who's has way more credentials than either one of us, and he writes an article that says it's because of the sun. The same thing you believe.
Okay.
Am I denying and you're not denying? Am I a conspiracy theorist and you're not a conspiracy? I guess I'm wondering where that line is.
And that's again, I don't know where that line is. That's really what I found. That's really piqued my interest about this. Like, because
Yeah,
I'd never really sat down and thought about how other people all process this differently and why that is. Like, it's a weird it's a weird thing to observe as a global phenomenon, basically, because everybody reacts to it in some way.
right. You can't not. You have to
Yeah,
have an opinion. I've never heard anyone who's like, I have no opinion.
yeah.
I don't
Nobody
care. Yeah.
has absolutely no opinion, and pretty much the whole world is aware of the idea of global warming, whether they're pro or con or whatever.
Right. I almost wonder though if this isn't part of, and I know we have a ways to go, but I almost wonder if this isn't part of what I was saying earlier. This has been my main problem with this for over a decade, maybe close to two. Oh my gosh, I'm so old. Um, it's that you can say, well, we really don't like conspiracy. I'm starting to hate the word conspiracy theories. We
I
have to use
know,
it. I know we have to
and
use it, but we know the CIA created that word, and that's such an ironic thing to
yeah,
say.
yeah,
So I'm starting to it bothers me to an extent because you're saying, okay, some people disbelieve the premise of this entire article you're reading is that like we know 100% or like 99.9% that it's anthropogenic, it's happening, it's going to be, there's this whole narrative, it's by us, we had a chance to stop it, we can still stop it, but we have to do XYZ. It's this whole narrative, it's not just one thing,
Yeah.
it's a whole story.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, well, if you disbelieve that because you think money and politics is involved, there's a problem there and we have to study you. But if you disbelieve it because of the science, I think I don't know. I
No,
think
I
it's
think they
so
seek to
interesting.
study both sides. Like, I think in that
Ugh.
research, they're going to want to talk to people that are believers and non-believers to find out. Because again, this whole thing is kind of focused around like how we all come up with different reasons and
Right,
why and what inputs are doing that to us.
right. I guess
It's
I'm just
almost more.
saying.
It's a bigger study on the human condition than it is about global warming.
Yes, and I find that very fascinating. I guess what I'm saying is you can't the way we write about it. You can see it in the article. You
Yeah.
cannot escape politics. Because these people are not going to do a systematic study as to why people believe the quote conspiracy theory that the oil people knew about it 50 years ago and have been lying since 1990. That's a literal conspiracy, and they're assuming that that's true the entire time.
Oh, buddy, I got more theories coming. It's going to go the other way too.
No,
You
I
know,
know. I know.
yeah,
I guess this is just making me mad because I'm going to end up with no wall. I'm going to work my whole life. I'm going to end up 65 years old. I'm going to watch my grandchildren. I'm going to have to give them my last bottle of water. And I'm going to be like, all we did was argue about this. And I don't care if we did the sky seeding or the nuclear energy or the windmills or whatever, but we did
dude,
not.
if Nestle has their way, you better have some money because you're going to be buying water. It's definitely not a human
Oh, I
right.
was like, where does Nestle come into this? Yeah, it's going to
Oh
be
yeah,
terrible.
they're
Yeah.
buying. I can't. I'm blanking on the CEO or whatever's name. They pretty much come out and publicly said like, yeah, if you can't afford water, like screw you. We're buying up all the water.
Let's keep going. Uh,
Anyway, a related feature of climate change conspiracy theories is that they appear to be politically loaded, dividing opinion according to people's position on the spectrum between right and left, with the right wing emphasizing the production of wealth rather than its redistribution and opposing government regulation and interference. It is not surprising that right wing political identification is associated with disbelief in climate change. This type of disbelief is unlike the rejection of mainstream science surrounding other controversial topics like genetically modified foods. However, as a cognitive psychologist, Stephen Lewandowski and his colleagues have shown in a research they did in 2013 that people who have a conspiracy conspiracy view of the world uh, and who prescribe to a range of conspiracy theories are more likely to reject the mainstream scientific consensus, which I would argue that's not always the case. I know I'm not. I can go both ways with information. I like to think I'm able to process and research things and pick through things.
I do too. Yeah. But on average, that might be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, motivated reasoning may help explain why the mounting scientific evidence of climate change only seems to have yielded more and more conspiracy theories and controversy. Researchers have shown that exposure to scientific evidence about climate change can polarize opinion rather than informing it in a rational way that one might expect. When climate scientists are seen as part of the left wing elite arguing for social change, as you were mentioning earlier with the scientists, meeting in Copenhagen or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when they're seen as left wing elites for social change, their findings may be sharply rejected. It may seem perfectly reasonable for climate scientists to point to the impact of climate change on the world's least powerful people, for example. However, such arguments appeal more to liberals than conservatives. According to studies done in 2012 by Markowitz and Sheriff. Couching arguments in terms of conservative moral values, such as a concern for purity, for example, of the environment, could potentially help diffuse the perception that liberal scientists are distorting or falsifying their results for political purposes.
The irony.
Yeah, I know, right?
The irony of a professor saying we need to sociologically study you and couch it in your own views so that you agree with us.
Oh,
I
we're gonna get into. They did do some of that.
yeah.
We're gonna get into some studies on like swaying people's opinions based on
I
how
mean,
you present information.
I've always thought, for instance, we've grown up in the Midwest.
Mhm.
Now, in the 70s, there was a big problem with smog
Yep.
and with rivers that were catching on fire. If you
Yep.
ever look into how the environment was in the 70s,
It was terrible.
it was like kind of scary.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look,
like, yeah,
major waterways were the wrong color.
right.
They'd be green or red or something
Eh,
unnatural for water.
right. And people more or less, and I would say in the Midwest where we live, people more or less weren't super affected by that.
No.
But kind of people if you talk to your mom or dad or your grandma and grandpa, they say, oh yeah, smog's terrible, acid rain, rivers on fire. They could get behind it
Hmm.
in a way that just has not happened with global warming. I don't think you have to infantilize people. I think that really what they're saying here is true. You have to put it in terms, but I don't think you put it in terms of your moral purity and you tend to see yourself as better. I think you could just say, look, um, do you like the idea of a lake drying up? Do you like the idea of crops not being, like you could just talk to people but every time they talk to people about this stuff, it's all about like, well, it's going to happen in the Middle East or it's going to happen in South America. And people are like, I don't know anything about those places. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
know. And it's like, my
That is a
my
good point. Yeah, the presentation of information has not been very effective.
no.
In fact, the title that we gave it is confusing. Like we shouldn't be calling it global warming. It should just be climate change.
Yeah, but that's what people normally call it now. But even that's used even that's used in the argument because they're like, well, you used to say global warming, now you're saying climate change, and before
Exactly.
that you were talking about global cooling. And frankly, I'll put my cards on the table. I know we're only about halfway through. I don't think we know what the hell's going on. I think the best guess is we're warming the climate. I think that's the best scientific guess we have, and I think it's more than a guess. I think we pretty much have evidence to show that.
There's
But
definitely some extra CO2 going into the air for sure.
yeah, which is
Lots
causing
of it.
more warming than there would be otherwise.
Yeah.
I truly do not think we have a handle on all of the other factors like agriculture, volcanic eruptions, the Earth's natural processes, the sun. I don't think that. I think that we're going to find out a lot in the future about those things. But I
Yeah.
think we have enough. I think we have enough now to know that we need to start moving towards not pumping this one particular. How can you pump one? It's like a drug. It's like if I take one aspirin, it helps my head feel better. If I take 20 aspirins a day, my liver is going to fail.
Yeah.
It's like you cannot pump one thing. Humans aren't pumping oxygen or nitrogen or anything else into the atmosphere. We're pumping CO2 and methane. And it's like you cannot pump one type of gas into the atmosphere and expect it to have no effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to suddenly over the course of like 100 years rapidly increase that amount that's going up into the air again of the same chemicals that expect nothing to change.
And already, I want to tell the listeners right now, this is not a political judgment. Because trust me, you have no idea what I think about what we should do about this, or if we should do anything about it. I'm saying that it seems very clear that we have a some fairly good models that this is not a healthy way to continue things forever. I'm not
Oh,
saying the world is going to end in 12 years. I'm not saying, any of that. I'm just saying that it seems very clear that this is correct. And I think we have just completely botched how we talk about it.
yeah, and it's spiraling. I believe we're heading for a tipping point. This is like a double-edged conspiracy. Another important and possibly unique feature of conspiracy theories about climate change is that they are powerful theory. There are powerful theories on both sides of the debate. With regard to topics on 9/11, President Kennedy, the Apollo moon landing, there's a single mainstream explanation opposed by one or more conspiracy theories, as we've kind of talked about. In the case of climate change, however, conspiracy theories that dispute the official account that humans are inducing dangerous levels of climate change are countered by others that affirm it. Indeed, some of these counter conspiracy theories suggest that the official account has not been put firmly enough. A core proposition of many, including arguments put forward by organizations such as Greenpeace, is that industrialists are orchestrating and funding a campaign to sow seeds of doubt and denial in public opinion. So, other conspiracy theories refer to less Byzantine scheming than backroom political mechanisms. For example, National Geographic reported that important information about greenhouse gas emissions in China was removed from the summary for policymakers prepared for the fifth Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Assessment. They apparently intentionally suppress the intentional suppression of information that may be politically inconvenient raises concerns about the international politicization of climate change, specifically that evidence of its seriousness and of its links to human behavior tends to be understated.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that cannot be overstated.
Yeah.
Every time there's a major climate conference, the Paris Accords, um, I do not remember the one in Japan before that in the 90s, but every time there is talk about this on the global level, China, India, major powers, mainly China. I think China is building something like 40 power plants a month or
Oh yeah.
40 coal plants a month. We never are allowed to factor in what they do.
Yeah.
And I remember this back from when I was in high school and
Yeah.
college. It's like I've seen charts where it's like, let's say that the United States just like cut off the power. If China continues at its rate, it makes zero difference. We could live in the cold and the dark and have nothing, and and the Earth will warm the exact same because they will build every power plant we've had in the next 3 years. And it's like, well, you just starved in the dark for no reason. If everyone's not on board, what's the point? And China's not on board, and that is a
No.
conspiracy because nobody holds China accountable for anything.
No, they do just kind of do what they want. They're big enough and powerful enough that it's just yeah. That's a
Sounds familiar.
that is a whole nother can of worms right there. So counter conspiracy theories may gain less airtime than those that underpin the denial of climate change. Nonetheless, they draw empirical support from extensive analyses of documented links between industrial interests, think tanks, and prominent climate skeptics. And indeed, from recent evidence that these links are becoming more untraceable. In short, they may be largely warranted, even unavoidable responses to tactics of an opposing lobby aiming to discredit mainstream science and policy. No matter how plausible or warranted, the very existence of counter conspiracies illustrates the corrosive and potentially recursive nature of conspiracy theorizing. In the climate change debate, conspiracy theories, for example, that scientists and governments are overstating risk for nefarious reasons, are themselves the subject of conspiracy theories that industrialists are funding their dissemination. Both sides of the debate are therefore represented by an insincere and scientific data are represented as a political tool rather than value-free observations of the world, as they should be. So this creates a climate of uncertainty and mutual distrust, which, especially when politicized, greatly undermines the possibility of rational debate and discourse about the appropriate policy response to scientific findings. Perhaps most corrosive, though, the sum total of these effects is to create the impression that climate change debate boils down to a choice between competing conspiracy theories.
Yes, sir. Man, I should have just shut up at the beginning because you were getting to it. But
I was, yeah,
hello, I'm
no,
your
this is how,
co-host.
yeah,
Yeah,
this is
I
how
know
this
this is
works.
how it works.
And
Yeah,
I'm trying not to step on points later. And I'm like, just hold back, buddy. I'm getting to you.
yeah.
I'm getting to you because
I
they
will.
really broke this apart from all different sides.
I have to say it though for those listening because I'm sure a lot of people caught it. These authors said that they consider conspiracy theories to be. They did not say justified. They said warranted, largely warranted.
Mm-hmm.
and unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
They said that pro climate change conspiracy theories are warranted and unavoidable in order to combat the bad conspiracy theories. How do you say this stuff and expect people not to be suspicious? How do you say in a academic article, it's warranted and unavoidable that we produce our own conspiracy theories in order to combat the bad conspiracy theories? And it's just so, I'm so upset that both sides have conspiracy theories.
Yep.
Like he's admitting,
Yeah.
he and she are admitting
Yep.
that there's you're doing this to me. You're
Uh-huh.
doing a good one on me. All right, I'm mad.
I told you this was going to be a little bit different of an episode. Yeah, this
And
is.
he's correct. He says the sum total of the effects is to create the impression that climate change debates boils down to a choice between competing conspiracy theories. In that same paragraph,
Yep.
he said conspiracy theories are warranted
Yep.
and unavoidable. So he
Yep.
says, go ahead and do your conspiracy theories. We can't avoid it. You might as well do it. We got to fight the other conspiracy theories.
Fight fire with fire at this
And
point is
I'm
basically
just
what I'm
so
hearing.
upset that we have conspiracy theories. That almost literally, man, that literally reading that makes me doubt these people a little bit more as far as their views on climate science, because it's like, if you have the truth on your side, why would your answer be we have to create our own conspiracy theories? I've never thought that before.
It was a weird note in it. I'm glad you zoned in on it like this, because yeah, it's a little. I don't know, and it's like you are perpetuating the problem here. Is basically what's happening.
Well, my God, if you gave this article to someone who believes that scientists are being paid by the government,
Yeah.
and there's a line in it that says we have to create our own conspiracy theories, it's it's warranted and unavoidable. You're going to say, well, there you go. There you go. They're saying things that are untrue, and they're saying it's warranted and unavoidable. Oh, I'm mad at the author. I'm mad at the world. I'm mad at Exxon.
Mad at me.
I'm mad at I'm mad at you. I'm mad
Well,
at anyone who drives a car. I'm mad at people who want to take away my car. I want to be the only person in my giant SUV and my private jet, and I want everyone else to live in a hovel and burn elephant dung to survive. That's what
USA,
USA.
USA, USA. But you're not
Ah,
wrong. You're not wrong. That's pretty much where we're at. And that's why this whole topic is such a mess. Yeah, it just seems like a bunch of very salty people being salty with each other at this point.
but think about what we're talking about, and maybe I'll save this till the end. I think when you talk about the stakes, and literally the stakes on both sides, I'm not just talking about the world ending.
Yeah.
Everyone deserves to be salty about this, and that's what makes me mad that we don't have a real conversation. And I've lost the faith in my government to have a real conversation.
Well, yeah. Oh yeah, there's not a whole lot of faith going on in this, and I will be honest. Yeah, this article did not help my belief that we will figure this thing out and come to a conclusion and unite as some sort of a team. I think we're just giving up and going to Mars now is the plan.
So far, yeah.
Like we're gonna burn this one to the ground and then we figure out how to create a new one. We all move there. We let Earth be terrible for a couple thousand years or whatever, and then we'll have ruined Mars, and then we can come back to Earth and do the same thing again.
Maybe we're already in that cycle.
We might be in that cycle.
Maybe we were the Martians.
We might have been. Well, we talked about that in the remote viewing episode, I think.
This might be our third or fourth time going back and forth between planets.
Yep.
There was probably a musky Elon who lived on Mars who brought us all here.
Well, he was apparently the Messiah that was predicted in the 1950s, which is weird.
Yeah, and then Elon became Elohim, and then that became our stories about people bringing us here.
That was a very interesting article. Oh, man. Okay. Back to this. Back to this article. Okay. So, in a world where people disbelieve science or are unsure about the meaning of scientific claims, the sources of conspiracy theories are extremely important. When people are unsure or lack confidence in data, they tend to rely on secondhand knowledge, typically presented by authoritative media sources. But when well known and seemingly authoritative sources endorse conspiracy theories, as in the case of Bill Gray and other members who I've mentioned, people are likely to take notice known as knowledge by authority in philosopher Charles Sanders Peirce taxonomy of epistemology.
Epistemology.
Nailed it.
Ways of knowing.
Yes. Reliance on others for information cannot guarantee impartiality or accuracy. And that's according to a study done by Hovland and Wise back in 1951. Further, if climate change conspiracy theories make people doubtful of scientific claims, people may be less likely to support action or take measures to reduce the problem. So, although often parodied as inconsequential fantasies entertained by disenfranchised people on the fringes of society, conspiracy theories can influence what ordinary people intend to do in important domains. For example, social psychologist Daniel Jolly and one of the authors of this article asked people participating in a study to read fictitious articles about vaccines. This was Jolly and Douglas back in 2014. One set of participants read an article arguing that people within the vaccine industry are guilty of misrepresenting or hiding data about the efficiency and safety of vaccines, and their actions are motivated by profit. These are typical conspiracy theories advocated by members of the anti vax movement. The other study participants read a piece that refuted common anti vaccine conspiracy theories. The study reported that people in the first group who were exposed to anti vax conspiracy theories were more reluctant to have a fictional child vaccinated.
I would like to add a wrinkle in that.
Okay.
This was a study about people reading studies.
Yes.
So let's say that you sign up for a study and a bunch of people in coats come in and say, "We'd like you to read something." You're probably going to assume that they're showing you something that they researched.
Yeah.
So not only are you
Well, no, you're presenting. I mean, one of those they were presenting as false, and the other one was not, or was refuting it. So one they just gave the claims, the other one they gave the claims and then refuted the claims.
Yeah, but these are two different groups of test subjects.
Yeah.
So let's say you're in the test subject group that gets, and it doesn't matter, it's either way.
Oh yeah, I just had my brain warped a little bit.
Let's say you're in the test subject group where a scientist in a white coat says, "Hey, thank you for coming to the study. We'd like you to read something." And then he hands you a scientific document that says that vaccines are going to give your child autism. A scientist just brought you to a scientific study area and handed you a document that says, obviously it's going to change your mind. If you're a normal person who hasn't done all of your own scientific research, a scientist just brought you in. This isn't just reading it in the newspaper. This is you in a clinical setting being given that information. So I'm not even sure. This tells me more that people believe people in like lab coats than it does anything else, because obviously people will tend to believe things they read, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
I had no idea that the research into beliefs of conspiracy theories and why people think that way would upset you so much.
Well, it's almost like,
okay, in this world, I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna, to make you feel better, afterwards they told the people that it was fake.
That's
they didn't
fine.
I'm assuming they didn't send them out into the world with false information afterwards.
Well, yeah. Either way wouldn't bother me. Either way that would be a hilarious study. We collected 1 million people and told them that they need to blow up the Golden Gate Bridge, and then we let them into the world. No, but no, but what I'm saying is like, I guess if this study tells you people tend to believe false things that they read, right?
Mm-hmm. Or they just believe whatever they read.
I think it might be. I think what I'm saying is it's tainted, because the whole point of this article is believe the science, believe the science, believe the science. Exhausting. We don't have people reading a thing in a newspaper here, sitting at home eating their breakfast. We have people drawn into a lab by scientists that show them a paper. I think that might, unless there's a third control group where this happened at a Starbucks, where you left the newspaper on the counter and then you question them about what they read, I think you've kind of ruined your own experiment here. Because if it's like bringing people into a doctor's office and the doctor tells them something untrue medically, like right to their face. That's way different than reading something in a newspaper that you know is untrue about
Yeah.
medicine. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It kind of ruins the control of the study because these people are going to want to believe the scientist who gave them the article while they're reading the anyway. I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to become a climate scientist just because of this.
Just
And
to
I'm going to
spite
work for
you.
and I'm going to work for Exxon just to spite you. But then I'm going to say it's real just to spite them. But then I'm going to come out at the end of my life and say it's fake just to spite all the other people.
You're gonna Larry David it and have a spite career.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that last season was amazing. So back to this. Using a similar experimental design, other researchers have shown that people who read materials arguing that governments are involved in elaborate plots and schemes, such as the 9/11 conspiracy, indicate a reluctance to vote in general elections compared to those who read information that refutes such conspiracy theories. And that's, again, according to the research done by Jolly and Douglas in 2014. Further research has shown that people can be influenced by exposure to conspiracy theories without being aware they are being persuaded. Of particular importance here, research has explored the impact of climate change conspiracy theories. Jolly and Douglas, again in 2014, asked people to read a paragraph about climate change. In one condition, the paragraph contained information supporting conspiracy theories. For example, that climate scientists are doctoring their data. In another condition, the paragraph refuted the conspiracy theories. Exposure to conspiracy theories reduced people's intention to reduce their carbon footprint relative to the people who were given refuting information. So,
I'm going to jump in again.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in again. He's literally saying a scientist pulls you in a room, shows you a thing that says climate change isn't real. He pulls another guy in the room, shows him a thing that says it is real. What did you expect to happen, sir?
Well, I realize
what did you expect to happen?
I realize what's upsetting you here, but you got to understand what they're doing. Like, they're basically simulating somebody listening to the meteorologist Bill Gray earlier on TV or in his book say a thing. They're basically creating a scenario where they can visually see and monitor what's happening in people as they're given this new information.
Yes, but I fail to see how in the world you wouldn't expect that exact result, or what the novelty or interest of it is. I fail to see if you show me information this way, I'm going to tug this way. If you show me information, I feel like that's
It's
just the human
proving how
condition.
easily people are swayed.
Yeah.
Again,
True.
we're exploring the human condition here.
But again, okay, maybe I'm focusing on the wrong end of this.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
Let's talk about the people who are shown the stuff that he considers real.
Okay.
They're more likely than the other group to reduce their carbon footprint.
Yes.
Okay. So the real question is who got swayed the wrong way?
Well, again, there are arguments on both sides. So you could argue, depending on your personal beliefs, you can argue either side was right.
And that's what I'm saying. That's really my point, is a study like that really shows you nothing, because you have to go back to what's the right information. You cannot prove either way that somebody was swayed by wrong information in that study. You just have to assume which one's the right information.
Well, you can still observe that no matter which way you think is the right information, because you're seeing it go the opposite way in that study. That's the point.
Yeah, I don't know. No, there's something. I'll figure it out. There's something not sitting well with this. There's something about this that I feel like goes one way every time, and doesn't tell you anything. If you just say, okay, I'm going to show you something that makes a good argument one way, you're obviously okay. Go on. I think I'm spinning my wheels here.
So, what can or should be done about climate change conspiracy theories? While scholars are waiting for more studies of climate change conspiracies specifically, they have suggested general strategies for undermining conspiracy theories to ensure public safety. For example, so these strategies include banning conspiracy theories altogether, imposing financial disincentives, such as taxes, on people who disseminate such theories, and engaging in cognitive infiltration. joining conspiracy groups, and counter arguing against their conspiracy claims. However, these suggestions are arguably undemocratic, unreasonable, and impractical. They may also backfire, and the likelihood of conversion using scientific evidence is limited because climate change denial increasingly reflects ideological positions. We better not start getting taxed for this show. I will say that.
Well, okay, I will defend myself here because at this point, like, I'm not quite sure, and I will figure this out as usual, probably off camera, about what my problem is with these two studies. That the author, by the way, notice the author of this article was a member of those two studies.
Yes.
I don't know
I
how you
almost suggest, like, I feel like I need to send you other articles, like other research that they've done to kind of paint a broader picture, because they've have done a bunch of work in this field. Like, this isn't like just a little thing that they hopped on for a couple of years. This is like
No. I'm not doubting the
okay,
education. No, and I do not want you to have that idea.
okay,
What I'm saying is there's something that doesn't sit right with me with this guy, and I think sometimes our emotion precedes our intellect, and you get like a fishy feeling something's wrong.
yeah,
It might take some time to work it out, and there's something about those studies that I don't like the simplicity of them. I want to point out, this is like the fourth time I'll point this out, the fourth thing I'll point out. He just cavalierly said, we're going to ban conspiracy theories. That's getting rid of the First Amendment. Impose financial disincentives. That's getting rid of the Fifth and Eighth Amendment and also the First Amendment. And then we're going to infiltrate them. That's literally government agencies infiltrating group. And his only issue with them is that they are, quote, arguably undemocratic.
Well, and he was, and I should let me clarify. He is citing other studies in that part.
Yes, but I love that. Okay. Other studies have said that we should put people in firing squads and or steal their children, but these are arguably not very nice things to do.
It was kind of a weird way to say it, yeah.
Like, how do you say arguably undemocratic? Like, you're literally talking about taxing a person based on what they say or banning what they say or infiltrating their group with what I assume would have to be government agents. Who's going to infiltrate?
Well, that's already happening. Remember Gladio? That's already happening.
I'm all over the place. I just go ahead.
Oh no, I have been too. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, this is a different one. I told you this one was going to be different.
Literally, he talked about ending the First Amendment, infiltrating groups with government agents, and then his critique of that is one sentence: arguably undemocratic, unreasonable, impractical, and it might also backfire. Yeah, how cavalier can you be about that? That's so cavalier.
I definitely don't agree with him on that part.
But I mean, I agree that it's undemocratic, unreasonable.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
But it's like, to put the qualifier arguably, I don't know. He's not a...
Yeah, that was a weird way to word it, but I think he's more pointing out the extreme levels you would have to go to.
Yes.
To actually make this. Now, I don't think he's really suggesting we should do this. And based on other stuff I read about him, I don't believe that's what he's saying there. But yeah, it was
not.
The arguably part was kind of a lofty way to say what he was saying, I feel like.
Yeah.
Not a great choice. I'm with you on that one.
No. Undemocratic. I mean, anyway, let's go on.
Yeah, we're on the same page on that one. So instead of reactive approaches like these, it may instead be possible to take a proactive stance by addressing the underlying conditions that allow conspiracy theories to prosper. As in the field of medicine, approaches to climate change conspiracy theories could be therapeutic, akin to treating or curing an existing illness, or preventative, like seeking to avoid or reduce the occurrence of an illness. Several factors that are associated with conspiracy beliefs are alterable. Factors such as uncertainty, feelings of powerlessness, political cynicism, magical thinking, and errors in logical and probabilistic reasoning are all associated with belief in conspiracy theories. Addressing these factors may decrease reliance on conspiracy explanations. For example, business professor Jennifer Whitson and Adam Galinsky in 2008 showed that a lack of control increases belief in conspiracy theories. Therefore, inducing instead a strong sense of control may reduce reliance on conspiracy theories. Future research will determine whether interventions are effective. They need to be tailored toward the specific conspiracy theories, and they may have a broader benefit, such as improving openness and transparency in society and critical and rational thinking in citizens.
That would be nice.
It would, wouldn't it?
I don't even, you know what? Even if you told me there's nothing we can do about climate change, we're all dead in 20 years, we should just go ahead and do that last thing anyway, just to, just to make the world better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's really go all out for the next 20 years if that's all we got and there's nothing we can do about it. Let's
improve openness, transparency, and the rational thinking of people.
And then let's burn down the house.
I do love how he says interventions, but he does not explain what that would be.
Well, again, I don't think they're sure yet. They want to research what's happening in psyches that cause these beliefs, basically.
I'm worried. I'm going to tell you what. This is my monkey brain, man. I'm worried this guy wants to put people in a room and like psychotherapy, talk them out of believing things.
Yeah, it does kind of seem that way.
I get that vibe strong, man.
And honestly, I did this one this week because it kind of feels like it leads into my other research.
No. I love the show.
Mind control and memory alteration.
It's just very rare that I want to punch this guy, but I also want to like have dinner with him. Yes. Mostly have dinner with him and then like punch him afterward.
This is the main, and that is a lot of why I wanted to do this just as it is, instead of trying to like me write what I think about what's being said here. Like, no, let's unpack this together because there's a lot there.
You chose the right path, because I feel like if we had dinner with this guy and we could be like, we're all alone, let's talk. Mm-hmm. I feel like he might be like, look, man, like, he might say exactly what I was saying, and he didn't have to say exactly what I'm saying, like, but he might say something very close to like, we just have to change our conversation and we have to improve education, and that's like all I think. And then he also might be like, look, I had to throw that half a sentence in there about undemocratic, but I think we should infiltrate them. We should brainwash people. We should, you know what I mean? And then in that case, I'm going to be like, okay, well, you're a terrible person. And honestly, reading this, I don't know which one he believes. I honestly cannot tell you which one he believes. I cannot tell you where he really stands on the policy response to global warming, which is the main question.
For what I've looked at, because I did look into them a little bit and glanced over some other stuff, that I don't think he wants to. I don't think there's a malicious side to this. I think it's more curiosity on the human psyche, specifically conspiracy theories. And again,
But what is an intervention? I want him to sit across from me and tell me what is an intervention.
I mean, I'm assuming that's a correction of facts, I guess, or what is perceived as facts to what is facts in reality.
But right before the sentence about the intervention, he said that like presentation of the facts aren't going to matter. We have to change all these things about people's cynicism, feeling of powerlessness, errors in their thinking. That tells me that he's saying, look, I do not trust you to read the articles I'm writing. I need to change the way that you think about yourself, the world, logic, and there needs to be an intervention. But he never says what the intervention is going to be.
Yeah.
How do I... He's
might
saying...
be somebody for us to keep our eyes on.
Well, this is every college professor. I love this. I love all the different directions this goes, but I keep seeing it go back to this very, and I'm not even going to say one-sided as far as climate change. It's one-sided as far as what do I do with people who disagree with me? Because I think we all feel that way. Everyone has an issue, whether it be climate change, guns, abortion, maybe even something as big as like, should taxes exist? or UFOs, anything. Everyone has an issue where they're like, I know I'm right. I know I'm right. And for some reason, the world just won't, other people don't get it.
Yeah.
And my big problem with this is, let's say I'm big on there should be less gun control. And I'm like, we should get rid of gun laws and everybody should have more guns. If I did a study where I'm a scientist and I bring you in and I show one person an article that says gun control doesn't work, and I show another person an article that says gun control does work, and lo and behold, they believe whatever I told them. What I'm saying is you could do that with any issue.
Yeah.
It's uninteresting. And then if that same scientist who did that very uninteresting study is also writing an article that says, look, we got lots of options on this gun control issue. We could infiltrate the gun control groups. We could tap their phones. We could ban what they're saying. But that's arguably undemocratic. So maybe what we need is an intervention to change the way that they think. But I'm not going to say what that is. That's this guy. That's who we're reading. And it creeps me out, man. It creeps me out because I probably more agree with him than I disagree with him on climate change. But everything he's saying creeps me out. And I'm saying this type of thing is why people believe conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
You're getting together in Copenhagen. You're calling it the Paris thing. You're like letting China off the hook. You're writing articles about how you need to intervene in the way people think about powerlessness in their life. And it's like, no kidding, Sherlock. Like a guy that gets home from work and he opens it up and he sees this, he's going to be like, I don't trust you. And also, you tend to tell me I can't drive my truck anymore. And this is the big issue. And this is why I'm mad at the whole world. And this is why we're all going to burn to death and die for no water.
I'm going to be honest. You have not. When I was putting this together, I imagined how you would respond. And you have not disappointed at all, Dennis.
Thank you.
So I will say this in closing. This is the end of the article. Exploring the impact of climate change conspiracy theories is timely and important. They cannot be dismissed as trivial or harmless. Governments and environmental professionals need to be aware that conspiracy theories may be detrimental to their efforts to encourage pro-environmental action. A future challenge for researchers will be to identify ways to responsibly deal with the consequences of climate change conspiracy theories.
Yep. Okay. I agree with that.
But yeah, I kind of felt like there was going to be like a 60-40, 70-30 split on belief, disbelief, or general aggravation with this guy and lady.
My problems with I know I keep saying that. this
well, he did a bunch of those. The last little bit here was him doing those studies on his own with another professor. She was not involved in that stuff with the Jolly.
Actually, you know what? I'm worried that we just were deeply sexist because, oh yeah, we're wrong. Douglas is the woman.
Are we?
Yeah, her name is listed first on this article.
Well,
it's Karen M. Douglas. Sutton is listed on 0 of them.
Then yeah, and
that's on me.
Well, it's on me too. I did the research and I did not correct that. So I apologize, everybody. That was not meant to be that way at all.
I don't apologize at all. It's a natural assumption.
I seriously just got the names reversed.
Yeah, I did too, actually.
As soon as it went to like last names, now I'm like, well, which stuff was he doing then?
Yeah.
And what's his part of all this then?
He all Sutton did was Douglas and Sutton wrote the 2008 article. And they wrote this article, and that's it. Now, Douglas worked with her other professor, Jolly, on, it looks like about 4 of these.
Yes.
So Douglas is obviously Robbie's superior. She might be the professor, and he's like the research assistant or something like that.
That I'm not sure about. Because, they do both have things on their own.
Right.
Like, they've written a bunch of research articles over the last 20, 30 years.
They're also both paid by the nuclear power industry. I'm just kidding.
I'm like, where did you find that? I did not see that in anything I looked up about them.
They're also both on the payroll of the Clinton Foundation. I want to make that clear. Karen M. Douglas, Robbie M. Sutton were both found at the Epstein Island. No, but yeah, man, this might be the most contentious episode we've ever done, man.
I kind of thought it was going to be, and that's kind of what really planted it in there.
Yeah, and I don't even mean between us. I mean, like,
Oh no, I think this is going to be a real heated episode when we release it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that people are going to have a lot to say.
I hope so.
I do too. I do too. Hey man, if we're not willing to get into the big stuff, I mean, and
That
not
was
that we
kind of
don't,
also
not
thinking,
that,
yeah, but it's a big issue. Whether no matter which side of it you're on, it's a global issue that we again all have to address in one way or another.
right. And yeah, not that this is the biggest issue, and some people will say it's the biggest issue. I mean, I think a lot of stuff we got into.
Well, depending on your view on it, whether it's a big issue or not.
Right.
Yep.
But the fact is, it's something that a sizable part of the population says is one of the bigger issues, if not the biggest.
Yep.
So we can't shy away from it. And I think this was an interesting. I got to hand it to you. This was an interesting way into it because, man, it really did present. You really did present both sides through the lens. I will say through the lens of these two authors, and man. I don't know how I feel about this article. I don't think it has changed a bit what I think about climate change, but I think it has made me think about. Man, I think I have some things to think about.
It made me more aware of the psychological aspect that's happening to all of us and how it's affecting things different. I think that's what I found most interesting was the comparison of both sides look crazy. Usually, it's the one official side and then everybody else with crazy ideas.
Yeah, and I think that's happened because it's so politicized.
Yeah.
I gosh, and I don't know. Even this, I took issues with the ways that I guess Karen mostly, but also Robbie, were dealing with it. But I almost feel like if you were to take this, we'll see what our listeners say. I feel like there were 3 or 4 spots, and I wasn't looking for them. They just struck my ear wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like this is someone who says people should be listening to the research. And if you take this specific research, which is not that long, we just went through it in under an hour.
Yeah.
And you just showed it to someone, and it's not written with any complex lingo. I didn't see any scientific terms in here. I didn't see any complex concepts. It was just studying basically sociology, and everyone is first of all, everyone is a sociology professor as far as I'm concerned. I don't buy into that as like a like a legit field of research, to be honest. But like, I feel like if you were to print this,
taking on a whole class of research.
Well, I'm just saying this is about conspiracy theories, and there's a reason there's a million things about like news and politics and stuff, and there's not like a million. Let's get into how many parts per million of carbon dioxide. None of the parts per million stuff was in this. We didn't get into what's going to happen 20 years from now, 12 years.
We only talked about the 400 parts. Whatever by 2000.
We talked about vaguely, but we didn't get into here's how this is not scientific. This is socio-scientific, is what I'm saying. So if I printed this in a newspaper, it might be a 3-page article. Everyone could read it. I think the average man on the street, which I consider myself to be, could read this and understand this. Mm-hmm. And I think that you would. I think if this was published in a newspaper, it would help the conspiracy theory, quote unquote, people more than it would help the climate believers, quote unquote.
I would agree with that. I think it would also just further disenfranchise the reader as well. Like, that's kind of part of why I wanted to present it as well. Because like we already talked about, like, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot with your own argument here, and I don't know what you want to accomplish. Like, when you're saying that both sides are making things up, that means you're admitting that whichever thing you believe, Catherine, it was Catherine, right? I'm trying not to screw her name up. Karen M. Douglas. I'm sorry, Miss Douglas.
Well, we gotta have Karen M. Douglas on the show.
Just to apologize at this point.
Yes, and then I also want to badger her. But Yeah, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh, but yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, they kind of shoot themselves. It kind of shoots themselves in the foot a little bit by talking about how both sides are kind of creating lies, and we need to create lies to combat the other lies. And that's not a great strategy. That's just gonna make everybody more paranoid and disillusioned with everybody.
And I think the problem is that that's not that's what she's saying, but it's not quite what she's saying.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna ignore Robbie like he doesn't exist because
Well,
we're
we've given him too much attention this episode and way too much credit. I feel like we're gonna get an email from Robbie. It's like, I actually wrote most of that article.
if I wrote a third party, he probably actually did. If I wrote a third, if I just because that's the way, like your
That's
underlings,
the way it
right?
would work for us, just because of the way we've said things.
If I hired someone who had no credentials next to me, he's writing most of the stuff, and then I'm editing it. So, and she has way more based on what I'm saying. But so
A little bit, yeah.
here's the thing. If I'm a third party person, let's say that I go to gosh, what was your last episode? The Ant-Man? The
Yeah, ant people, the hoppy ant people.
Okay, so let's say I went to a Hopi reservation and I was going to study who believes in the ant people and who doesn't. Now I have no opinion. I kind of do because you kind of convinced me that those were
There's definitely
aliens.
some ant people going on. Probably the
Yeah,
Anunnaki.
there are, but like
Probably the Anunnaki.
I grew up with no ant people.
I
grew up
your life a couple weeks ago.
Ant people have been only a recent part of my life. I've been itching all the time, but let's say okay. Let's say that as a researcher or an academic, I go to a Hopi reservation and I want to study the belief in the ant people.
Mhm.
And I decide that the ant people are a conspiracy theory, and the ones who don't believe in them are. Let's make it more interesting. Let's say I believe that the ant people is the true belief, and the people who don't believe in them, who are also Hopi, are conspiracy theorists and are coming up with reasons why the tribal leaders have more power for selling this myth about the religion of the ant people, right? Like I create this whole narrative. If I write an article about that, first of all, if I came in with no preconceived notions, I'm going to take no side. And I'm going to be like, this side's whatever, and this side's whatever. This, and I hate calling it an article. It's a paper. We call it a paper. This paper starts with the premise. It starts at the very beginning that one side is correct scientifically and the other is not.
Mhm.
That creates all kinds of problems. Because if you believe that you are correct scientifically and the other is not, and then you go on to advocate or softly go soft on like First Amendment issues or all the different things we came up on, it starts to look like a conspiracy.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I gotta say. And Karen and Douglas, send me an email. We'll talk. You can find me. You're smart enough to Google my name. You'll find me. But yeah, I really thank you, Patrick, for bringing such an interesting. This is very interesting, and I think we should do more stuff like this for real.
Yeah, I have a few things in the works right now that I didn't forget my roots of government conspiracies and stuff like that, and I want to do some more stuff like that. So that's I'm probably gonna do less ancient alien stuff, I guess, for a little while. We'll see.
I'm gonna pick up the Hollow Earth research while
That's
you're
fine. You run with it. There's a lot there.
the beat.
There's so much there. Oh man, we could do several episodes on that.
And as an American, I will just say that this is so politicized. I've been saying this whole episode. It's so hard for me not to say exactly what I think, but I'm not going to do it because that would not be a reaction. That would be me inserting things on top of this. I just have to say that if we think the truth is on our side, we should not write elitist papers to each other that says that infiltrating groups and banning speech and creating our own conspiracy theories is an appropriate way to teach people the truth. Because when people read that, they're going to say, you think I'm beyond reach? you think I'm stupid, and you think that the only way to for me to learn is to change my entire psychology. And I do not blame a single person who listens to the episode that becomes a conspiracy theory person about global warming. And I'm not even going to call you a conspiracy theorist. I'm going to call you.
We got to think of a new term.
We need to
As a
create
show,
our
we
own
need,
term.
we need to come
Yeah,
and
we
create
do.
our own term for what they're called, and we will just start replacing every instance in
It's
articles and stuff.
It's so hard though, because other people who have tried to do that, they're like free thinker, and it's like, well, yeah, but sometimes it's just dumb. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
like we need to create conspiracy theorists. It's just such a perfectly insidious term, because the opposite of conspiracy theorist is believing the truth or knowing the truth. The opposite of theory is knowing. The opposite of conspiracy, the way they use it, is truth. So they've created what's basically a fake thing.
Mhm.
Everyone is a conspiracy theorist. Everyone believes something that the rest of people don't believe. I gotta hand it to the CIA. If we can figure out a term, fine. But I think they might have beat us 50 years ago.
Yeah, they might have ruined us on this for sure. That was some sly thinking, though.
My dream job is to be a CIA person in the 50s, when you could just drug people up in a coffee shop.
Okay.
If I could be a Men in Black, I would not be doing a show about Men in Black. Wouldn't that be so much more fun? If 2 Men in Black came to your door to like, come with us, Patrick. You will live in a spaceship. You'll be 900 years old. You can do whatever you want. It'd be like, okay, that sounds pretty fun.
Oh, I'll go Will Smith this up in a heartbeat. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, totally. I'd Will Smith this up. Well, this is a very good episode. I'm rambling, and it's because I have so much I want to say that would be off topic, but it's because I have so much that I want to say about these people. But it's also, this was the article.
Yeah.
We're going to get more comments on this than any other episode.
I think I think it's going to be a very polarizing episode, which I kind of want it to be. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah. Hey, everyone, like the show, share, subscribe, and if you want me to do one that's all about that British dude from the mid 2000s, I'm not going to do it because it's old. But let us know what you think.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for listening, Dennis. Thank you for being here and letting me play with your emotions for an hour or so. Yeah, we'll be back next week. I'm sure Dennis is going. The next episode is probably going to be a spite episode where he just tries to upset me. So this should be good. So I love you, Dennis. I love you, everybody. Bye.
I love you.